Hi guys, so welcome to the day 4 of reading economics daily with me. Technically it's day 5, but we'll count it as day 4 because it's 5 because it's past midnight. We will count it as day 4 because this is the fourth day I'm doing this, and I've not slept, so it's not tomorrow yet. I mean, is that how it works? Not really, I know, but we're not as tomorrow until midnight for the sake of keeping the streak. So, of course, we're reading our first book, The Undercover Economist, and why I'm recording this is because I find it difficult to keep persistence with my habits. So, if I record it and post it somewhere, then I might feel guilty, like, oh my god, I've not done this. And this is my form of like showing up somewhere so that it feels like I'm doing something, And yeah, external validation has been a major part of my growth, but I hope to internalize it soon. Till then, I'd have to like somehow keep doing the work and keep doing whatever makes me keep doing the work. So that is why we're going to read the fourth chapter, and we're going to just pretend like the reason that I am this late for recording this is not because I was scrolling on Instagram, because that would be like pathetic. So we're just going to pretend like I was doing something important instead of scrolling on Instagram. Yeah. So I'm doing something important. No, I wasn't. I was scrolling Instagram. So the But I think I've chosen the best book because this book is very engaging, witty, and funny. I don't even get most of the book because it's really late at night and I'm sleepy and all that stuff. But this book is so engaging that I really like reading this book. So I recommend this book to anyone who's like trying to dive into economics, but is like still in the basics. I am. I'm trying to learn more about economics, but I'm still in my basics. So I'm reading this book, and this is called the fourth chapter is called Crosstown Traffic. We've just learned, that is yesterday, that in the world of perfect markets, everything is for the best. We know that perfect markets are completely efficient, delivering outcomes that are flawless in every respect except distribution. We also know from the Head Start theorem that we can fix any complaints about distribution in advance. Presto, every problem solved, or at least every problem concerning for allocation of goods and services. That's nice to hear, but then why did I spend 2 hours stuck in traffic on the way to work this morning? The bumper to bumper traffic was a stupid waste. All of us could have been riding buses or carpooling, and we would have reached our destination in downtown DC in 15 minutes. Where is the perfect market there? The obvious answer is that, of course, there is no market perfect, or otherwise for driving around on the streets. What may be less obvious is that there could be economies that work smoothly because they are full of perfect markets are neither interesting nor realistic. But because perfect markets provide such a clear benchmark, economists find it much easier to start from them and work out what is going wrong rather than start from scratch and work out what is going right. And this method is of thinking about the world will lead us to the cure of crosstown traffic. Interesting. What's wrong with my world? I'm a happy man, but there are happy woman. But there are things in my life that infuriate me and that I wish be different. I wish I didn't have to upgrade my computer software every couple of years at great expense. Me too. I wish that I could rely on my doctors to give me appropriate medical treatment when I am ill. I wish Washington's streets were not clogged with traffic and filled with pollution. Very similar wishes. These three personal, if common, grumbles correspond to the three key ways in which markets fail to live up to Chapter three's lofty ideal of perfection. Markets fail to work well in the face of scarcity power, as we saw in Chapter 2. That is one of the problems with buying computer software. The market is dominated by a single company, Microsoft, which has tremendous power to set high prices. Markets also fail to work well if some decision markers lack information. When I go to my doctor, I have no idea if he is giving me good treatment while he has no need to take into account the cost of the treatment, and my insurance company has every incentive to refuse to pay without knowing the true situation. We'll deal with the healthcare in chapter 5. Finally, markets fail to work well if some people make decisions that affect bystanders. When a driver buys gasoline from the gas station, that is all very well for the driver and the gas station, but not for the bystanders, including other drivers who have to breathe the resulting carbon monoxide. I never thought of it that way. Carbon monoxide in the carbon monoxide perspective. These three big problems are called market failures. Scarcity power, which we discussed in chapter 1 and 2, missing information, which we will discuss in chapter 5, and the subject of this chapter, decisions that have side effects on bystanders. So, the failures are scarcity powers, decisions that have effect on bystanders, and missing information, which will be in chapter 5. So, economists call the side effect an externality because it lies outside the original decision. For instance, the decision to buy gasoline, whether because of scarcity power, incomplete information, or an externality, when the company fails to live up to the idealized world of truth, trouble is in store. How drivers affect bystanders. Washington DC, London, Tokyo, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Bangkok and indeed any of the world's great cities are full of cars, buses, and trucks. Those vehicles seriously damage the happiness of innocent bystanders. They cause severe air pollution. Admittedly, London's current air pollution is not as severe as the Great Stink in the 1850s, in which tens of thousands died of cholera. But still, air pollution from traffic is not trivial. Many thousands of people die because other people want to drive. Around 7,000 people a year die prematurely because of traffic pollution in Britain, a little more than 1 in 10,000. Um, in the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency estimates that 15,000 people die prematurely because of particulate matter produced from sources such as diesel engines. Within urban areas like London, the cost of delays from congestion are even worse. If you consider the number of hours spent sitting in traffic as being in any way significant loss of productive or enjoyable time, then there is the noise, the accidents, and the barrier effect, which discourages people and particularly children from walking to school, to local stores, the local schools, or even to meet their neighbors across the street. People are not fools. It's almost certainly true that anyone taking a trip in car is benefiting from driving, but they are doing so at the expense of everyone else around them. The other drivers stuck in traffic, the parents who dare not let their children walk to school, the pedestrians who risk their lives dashing across the street because they are tired of waiting for the light to change, the office workers who, even in the sweltering summer, cannot open their windows because of the roar of traffic, because each driver who gets into the car is creating misery for other people, the free market cannot deliver a solution to a problem of traffic. The external effect of congestion and pollution are important departures from the world of truth. In the world of truth, every act of selfish behavior is turned to the common good. I selfishly buy underwear because I want it, but in doing so, channel the resources into the hands of underwear manufacturers and do nobody any harm. Textile workers in China, where the underwear is made, selfishly look for the best job, while manufacturers selfishly look for the most capable employees. All of this works to everyone's benefit. Goods are manufactured only if people want them, and they are manufactured only by the most appropriate people to do the job. Self centered motives are put to work for everybody. Drivers are in same situation. They do not offer compensation for the cost they inflict on other people. When I buy underwear, the money I spend is compensation for all the costs incurred in making it and selling it to me. When I take the car for a drive, then I do not even need to think about the cost incurred by the rest of the society as I avail myself of the free roads. Different kinds of prices, marginal and average. It is not quite fair to say that drivers can use the roads for nothing. In the United Kingdom, it's not legal to drive a car or even to park it in public streets unless you have paid a sizable annual tax called vehicle excise duty. Many states in the United States have a similar tax. Gas and diesel fuel are also taxed heavily enough to cause great resentment. In the autumn of 2000, for example, a series of protests against high fuel prices prevented fuel reaching the country's gas station and brought Britain to a standstill. In Britain, drivers if in Britain, drivers pay 20 billion in taxes on cars and fuel every year. In America, the figure is around 100 billion. To ask have they paid enough is to ask the wrong question. The right question is are they paying for the right things? The answer is no. There are two different concepts of price at play here. The distinction matters. The average price that a driver pays for a journey across the city is quite high if the driver is paying an annual license fee. But the price that the driver pays for one extra trip around across the city is low. The trip doesn't burn much fuel and drivers are not charged for extra trips. Once you've paid for the right to take the car on the street in the first place, you don't get a discount for low mileage. You might as well drive because it won't put a penny on your tax bill. This is the difference between the average price and the marginal price, which is the price for one extra trip. I did not get this paragraph, so I'll read it again. Something else was going on in my mind. There are two different concepts of price at play here, and the distinction matters. The average price that a driver pays for a journey across a city is quite high if the driver is paying an annual license fee. But the price that the driver pays for one extra trip across the city is low. The trip doesn't burn much fuel and drivers are not charged for extra trips. Once you've paid for the right to take the car on the street in the first place, you don't get a discount for low mileage. You might as well drive because it won't put a penny on your tax bill. This is the difference between average price and the marginal price, which is the price for one extra trip. To understand why the difference matters, let's turn to alcohol. When I was in college, clubs and societies used to have big parties where some people didn't drink at all, and less surprisingly, most people drank far too much. This was because there were two types of ticket. Alcoholic tickets allowed unlimited boozing after payment of upfront fee of say £10, at that time about $15, and the other type of ticket was a lot cheaper and you had to drink rancid orange juice instead and stand in a corner while the drinkers got more and more obnoxious. Turning up and having a couple of beers was a pretty expensive proposition. So most people preferred either to maximize the value of the unlimited drinking opportunity or opt out of drinking alcohol completely. Of course, the result was chaos, we can imagine, although some people felt it made for pretty good parties. Since the university felt that the drunkenness represented a problem, they considered dealing with it at the next party by raising the upfront fee to say £20, about $30. But the likelihood would be that while a few people would still switch to being disgruntled orange juice drinkers, or give up on society altogether, most of the drinkers would decide there wasn't much point in any party without drinking. Grumbling, they would empty the contents of their wallets. Later in the evening, many of them would empty the contents of their stomachs. Because they wanted to get their money's worth, I believe. The university misunderstood the problem. They understood that the people were drinking too much and correctly thought that the solution would probably involve raising the price of this drinking. The problem is that there are different ways of describing the price of drinking. There is the price of being a drinker, £10. There is the average price of a drink for a typical student who has 20 drinks. This is 50 pence, and there is the marginal price of drink, which is zero. Once you've paid the upfront fee, you might as well keep drinking. Question: if you were running the university, would you deal with the problem by A. Raising up the front fee for drinking, B. Buying better orange juice, or uh, C. Scrapping the upfront fee and charging people for what they drank? Better orange juice, I think I would choose to C, charging people for what they drank. Better orange juice might be nice, but the undercover economist would humbly suggest that the solution to the underlying problem is C. Now back to traffic congestion. If you were advising the Secretary of Transportation, you might suggest an analogy with student parties. Currently, potential drivers have two options. They can cough up a large upfront fee and drive as much as they like, or they can not drive at all. This second option, the orange juice option, requires requires them to buy use transportation. This second option, the orange juice option, requires um, orange juice option. This second option, the orange juice option, requires them to bike, use public transportation, or walk. Although, as with the student party, the more people who choose the first option, the less attractive the second option becomes. You might even propose some policy options, raise the upfront fee for driving, supply better orange juice, more buses, better trains, cycle routes, pedestrian crossings, etc., or scrap the upfront fee and charge people for the trips they drive. All of these options could be expected to reduce traffic congestion to some extent, perhaps to an important extent, but it is option C that attempts to deal with the cause of the problem. Drivers do not live in the world of truth. This is, they do not pay the true cost on their actions, including the externalities or side effects, the effect that affect bystanders. Option C tries to make them pay the cost. We might call it an externality charge. Currently, every potential driver is being offered the same kind of deal as party-going students. Put up a wad of cash in exchange for an unlimited binge, or pay nothing and receive nothing in return. There are no half measures. Student parties were not livened up success excessively by the fact that drinks worked out at 50 pence, less than $1 on average. They were livened up excessively by the fact that the next drink was always free. Similarly, congestion is not caused by the fact that the tax on a car trip is 50 cents on average. It is caused by the fact that the next trip is always free. We must not get obsessed with the question of how much drivers pay on average. Certainly, how much any type of person pays on average is an important question of distribution. While distribution is important, however, it does not have a big impact in whether our streets are clogged up, and our cities are polluted. What matters much more for congestion is the is the price drivers pay at the margin, or to put in another way, the price drivers pay to make one extra trip. Cars don't cause much pollution or congestion. After all, car trips are the problem. Universities would encourage appropriate levels of drinking by charging students per drink. Similarly, the Department of Transportation would encourage appropriate levels of driving by making drivers pay for each trip. Pricing should reflect the change. I've been oversimplifying as usual. In most European countries, drivers do pay a tax per mile in the form of a high tax on fuel. But the tax on fuel does not closely match the cost that drivers inflict on each other and on the non drivers. People in rural areas pay the taxes. Typically, they spend between a quarter and a third as much as again on gasoline as those in urban areas. But it is the commuters in the London, New York, and Paris rush hours who are causing the most serious congestion, severe air pollution, and noise. The same trips made in the small hours of the morning do not cause congestion, although pollution and noise are still a problem. Make a similar trip between two houses in Alaska and you do not cause congestion. The noise is likely to be heard only by the occasional stray caribou. The damage caused by pollutants is much reduced because many of them will disperse sorry, harmlessly. If the idea of a charge on driving is that each driver faces the cost of his actions, the rush hour New York driver should pay more because he is causing more harm to others. Whatever level of externality charge turns out to be appropriate, if it is to reflect the truth, it should vary according to time and place. The idea of the externality charge is not to discourage everyone from doing anything that might inconvenience anyone else. It is to get them to take into account the inconvenience they caused to others. To take an extreme example, if I go walking in Virginia Blues Ridge Mountains, it is nice to be able to take in the natural beauty of the place in relative solitude, and so it's mildly annoying to find the trails cluttered with other people. They may be inconveniencing me, but it would not be efficient to forbid their trip because it gives them so much pleasure and it gives me so little trouble. Externality charging externality charging needs to strike the right balance between pleasure and trouble. It must reflect the cost of the externality, but no more. We should aim to make ours a world where people feel free to do things they enjoy, even if the others are mildly inconvenienced, but also one where we all refrain from harming other people in the effort involved to avoid harming them is small if the effort involved to avoid harming them is small. We discovered in Chapter 3 that perfect markets deliver this world, at least within the sphere the markets operate. Perfect markets cannot make us smile at passerby or love our families, but they can make sure that we get a cappuccino if and only if we are willing to pay more than the true cost, which includes the cost in time and trouble of the barista, the bean pickers, the entrepreneurs, the machine manufacturers, and the rest. In other words, perfect markets allow us to feel free to do the things that we enjoy only if our enjoyment outweighs the trouble caused to make it all possible. This is why economists are fairly relaxed when markets seem to be doing well, but we are also vigilant I don't know how to pronounce this word, vigilant for the many market failures. So, how do we make sure that when deciding whether to drive across town, I can be sure that the benefit to me outweighs the cost to everyone else? There is no need to worry about costs and benefits that are part of the efficient market transaction. So, if refining and gasoline retailing are perfect markets, contrary to popular belief, they are not far off. The trouble it took to refine and distribute the gasoline is fully represented in the price. I will not buy gasoline unless the benefit I get from it is greater than the trouble I took to refine and distribute. Instead, we should worry about cost and benefit missing from the market transaction. The pollution from the gasoline causes local poisoning and global warming, and the majority of the pollution damage when I burn a tank of gasoline is not caused to me or the oil company. The trick is to mimic perfect markets by getting drivers to pay all the cost of their actions. Since they have already paid the market cost to the oil company, they also need to pay on top of that the externality costs. These externality costs are the costs inflicted on others but not borne by the driver or the oil company. We now have all the elements in place to design an externality charge. We know that there may be costs and benefits that spill over from an individual choice or a market exchange. So if so, this will be inefficient transition. We could do better making at least one person better off and nobody worse off. We also know that if we want to change behavior to correct the inefficiency, we need to address prices and margins, not average prices. Third, we do need to worry about costs, which have been incorporated into a well functioning market transaction. Only externality costs, which have been left out. Only externality costs, which have been left out. Fourth, our marginal pricing should reflect those externality costs accurately. It's not enough simply to ban any behavior we don't like. Instead, we should be focusing on cases where the active person gains small benefit but causes large costs for others. Two objections to externality charges. A charge for externalities is efficiently a government tax, and all government taxes are controversial. Externality charges are often attacked from two opposing ranges of moral high ground. On one flank comes the objection that the externality charge is an unfair tax aimed at the disadvantaged group. Consider the idea of charging drivers to drive at congested times. To such proposals, and they have been widespread, the car the prob- the pro-car lobby argues that drivers pay enough and it is not fair to price poor drivers off the road. On the other flank come those who strongly object that the activity that is to be taxed on the grounds that after the externality charge has been imposed, the rich will still be able to do whatever it was that was objectionable. And in the case of traffic, the anti-car lobby claims that it is outrageous that rich drivers can afford to drive around as much as they like, given the environmental damage caused by cars. How much do people spend on fuel? Now, today it's already about 1 p.m., so I'm going to stop for today and only read for 29 minutes, which I didn't even read for 29 minutes, honestly, maybe 25. But that's it for today. I did not complete chapter 4, so I'll complete it in the next video. Bye bye. Good night.